The Queen's Gambit is a best-selling novel written in 1983 by Walter Tevis. It covers the life and times of an orphan chess prodigy named Beth Harmon as she rises through the ranks and deals with a troubling past and substance abuse issues. It's a book that was recently brought to the big screen, if you will, in an original Netflix miniseries, 7 episodes to be exact. And I'm here to discuss all that it was with the one and only good friend of mine, women's grandmaster Jen Shahade, 2-time U.S. women's champion and author of the book Chess Bitch, as well as with Aaron Hawaii, who is Chess.com's esports producer. A lot of you know that, so he's kind of an expert on what we believe chess entertainment should be. And he's also an amateur chess player who's played in a few chess tournaments himself. Hi, Aaron. And all right,
Hey.
How you guys feeling?
Great. We're really excited to
Good.
be here. Like everybody's buzzing about this Netflix series, Queen's Gambit. So it's fun to get a chance to talk about it with you guys.
Well, on that note, the first question I have is, okay, we're talking about this miniseries. I assume we've all had a chance to see at least a few episodes, right? Aaron, how many episodes have you seen at this point?
I think I've seen 3 so far. So
Okay.
this is great. You'll be able to spoil it for me as well.
Okay, well, that'll be great. Spoiler alerts ahead, right? And Jen, you were just saying you've seen all the episodes, but a couple of them you were distracted by the end, but you also read the book.
Oh yeah, and it was so gripping. The only reason I was distracted, I was trying to rush through it for this, and my son, sometimes took me away. But it was incredibly gripping. Spoiler alert! It was so good. I'm not gonna tell. We don't have to give all the details away, but it was just very gripping. It's easy to binge.
Well, I want to start with you, Jen, and ask, because you've read the book, how do you feel the adaptation was from the book to the Netflix miniseries? Do you feel they stayed true in all the elements that were appropriate to stay true to? And what would be your thoughts quickly on the book adaptation itself?
I've read the book a long time ago
Okay.
when I was a kid, inspired to be a great chess player. So I remember vaguely the book, but I am about to reread it because at US Chess Women, we're going to do this new book club about like books related to either chess or like intellectual growth. And that's our first book. So I'm
Okay.
excited to reread it. But listen, the adaptation was so phenomenal that it's hard to imagine anything being much better. So like the book might be as good. I can't imagine it being much better. It's just, it seems from like a filmmaking perspective, they nailed so many elements.
Right. Well, to talk about the actress that plays the main character, over to you, Aaron. So what did you think of Anya Taylor-Joy's performance, right? We've seen her in other things recently, was in Emma. But what were your thoughts on her performance overall? And do you feel she did a good job from your perspective, and maybe a little more new to the chess community than me and Jen, as far as really portraying what a chess prodigy would be like?
Well, definitely an aspect of one of the earlier episodes that I identified with was the experience she had going to her first tournament and just being like, what am I supposed to do with this?
Right.
Where do I go?
Right.
When do I press that? Like I had that experience myself at the my first tournament in the North American Open in Vegas last year. And that's what it's like. But she expressed a confidence that I definitely did not have in my first tournament. After getting all of that training from the custodian that, if you haven't seen the series yet, you'll meet in the first episode, but taking to it so much more naturally and then showing that confidence when she arrived. Things that I think is really important for a show like this or a movie like this, where something like chess is used as the premise that brings all these people together, is I like to ask myself, if it wasn't chess, if it was something else, would this story still be as strong? And I think the answer for this show is definitely yes. Obviously, we love it because we also love chess, and that brought us there. But the performances and the photography and just all of the other aspects of this show are so great that this
Right.
could be about something else, and it still has legs because of things like that, and obviously the awesome casting that you mentioned.
Right. Well, Aaron talked a little bit about the first chess tournament experience, but Jenna, you can speak more than anyone in this call, obviously, about what it's like to be a woman chess player, obviously, in the chess community. And what were your thoughts on Taylor-Joy's performance as far as expressing? I mean, Aaron says she had a lot of confidence, right? And also the experience of being a woman in a very male-dominated environment, right? What were your thoughts on some of the struggles she went through as in her character? And do you feel like that adaptation as a real-life woman chess prodigy player, right? Which is who you are and were. How do you feel like that came across? And did you relate with any of the feelings she had, and anything you would say about her character sort of growth throughout the series?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that first of all, I don't come into chess movies or poker movies like looking for a completely realistic portrayal.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm after getting into the spirit of chess, what makes us love it. And I think that she certainly nailed that, Anya Taylor-Joy. I've seen some interviews with her talking about her preparation for, this role. And I, frankly, from what I've seen, I think she's a genius. Like, I think she's absolutely brilliant. And I think that's why she took this role so well, because obviously she's portraying a brilliant young woman. And yeah, she has some gender specific like hurdles, like, getting her first period at a chess tournament and things like that. Spoiler alert. Oh my God. I gave away a key
You gave away the whole movie. No, I'm kidding. No.
But seriously. She, on the other hand, she's so strong, it almost feels like an asset because it makes her so separate from everyone else. She stands out and her brilliance stands out. And I think that she kind of uses it to her advantage in a way as she feels special, and she is special.
Right.
And she doesn't really play any other women in the movie. There's one, right? In the very beginning.
Yeah, the first one she beats, yeah.
And even like the people she plays blitz with, like the simul. So if you count it, there might be like 50 people she's played chess with in the movie. I mean, I didn't count, but I would say maybe 50 to 60. So she plays one woman and 50 to 60 men. And if the movie has any flaw from like I would say like, to me, like a conceptual point of view, because I think it was almost perfectly done as a piece of art. From a concept point of view, like if you want to think of it as like a feminist film, and I mean, you don't have to, but if you want to think of it as a feminist series, it certainly works in that way, in a certain way, because it's this like brilliant young woman who's also interested in fashion and a free spirit. But the fact that other women, it's kind of like her at the very top, like, so she's the genius, right? Which is a character that's usually occupied by a male. She's like the mad woman genius, right?
Right.
And then there's all the men underneath that who are like smart, of different levels of intelligence. And then there's underneath that other women, right?
Right.
And like that is not, might come off as a harsher criticism than it sounds, because it also was set in the 60s, right?
Right.
I think. So it's like, it's not like they're saying these women are dumb. It's just that none of them have any interest in chess. And the ones that do have an interest in chess aren't good enough to play even the people that she crushes.
Right.
So being like a big promoter of girls and women in chess, that was like the one thing, like, this pop song, Most Girls, right? It's like, is Beth an example that any woman can do anything, or that there might be some women out there that are exceptional and are actually even better at men at the types of things men do?
Yeah. It's a lot of food for thought, and I agree with your breakdown of the different messages I guess you could take from it depending on what your perspective is. Well, given the perspective as chess players, I want to ask both of you. I think that was one of the most interesting things for me, but I'll start with you, Oren, as a less experienced chess player, right? But what did you think of the chess adaptation itself, right? The scenes of the chess, what did they speak to you in regards to how realistic they were, and then I'll ask the same question to Jen in terms of how much you enjoyed that.
Well, one of my favorite moments, concentrating specifically on the chess in the show, was I think maybe in the third episode, where she's asked to think back on a previous game that she played. And so she goes to sit down to a board and begins to set up a position from memory with the pieces. Before I started really trying to learn chess, if somebody else did that in front of me, I was just kind of blown away. Like, how could you remember a position like that and just set it up just from memory, like without diagrams or whatever? What's funny is that once I started to take chess more seriously and prepare to play in tournaments for the first time, I found myself able to do that, able to recall clusters of positions in games that I had just played, to set it back up and try to think about it again. Like in ways that I would have been amazed by in the past. And then I became the person, other people were like, wait, you can do that? You can remember what happened in that game? And so I think not just like the accuracy of specific sequences that were shown in the film, as you know, whether or not they're accurate chess, but more of like, I appreciated the accuracy of what that's all like, the awe of being able to be so focused on your chess learning, that the culture that kind of exists around people like that, setting up games and talking about them with your opponents afterwards, or just challenging each other to rethink things. They definitely captured that very well.
Jen, what were your thoughts on, I guess, both the chess X's and O's, right? Appreciating, and maybe what was the first chess position you recognized that was famous, and your thoughts on what Aaron said about, did they really capture what the feeling is for you as a professional and two-time U.S. Women's Champion?
Well, I thought that Bruce Pandolfini and Gary Kasparov, as chronicled in the New York Times, did a really fantastic job with the chess scenes and like the chess positions. I agree with Aaron that it was also about like the spirit of it, like the way she gets so excited when she learns a new opening from the custodian, or she hears about the Sicilian. Like that was very striking to me, how well they did that. And I thought she also did a really good job with the blitz chess, because that's extremely difficult to do for an actor. And what interests me is that in interviews, I discovered that she has a background as like a model and an actress. I mean, I'm sorry, model, obviously she's an actress, as a dancer. So she mentioned that the choreography of dancing really helped her with being able to like, the choreography of your hands and like making these chess moves quickly. And, particularly like where she gives a blitz simul at this party where everybody's drinking, and she does a blitz simul. And she said that she was incredibly proud of herself for pulling that off. And I actually did an art project once with a dancer friend of mine, Gabrielle Revlock. We did something called hula chess, where we hula hooped. You see my hoop in the background, and played chess at the same time. And I had to teach her how to play chess so that she looked like a chess player, but it was a memorized game. And she also did way, way better than like most people. And I think it's that dancer's training, that you're looking for these microscopic movements in the hands that other people might not see. And like in the whole body and the elbows. And she, I thought, really hooked me with her blitz performances.
Well, and I'll say I observed that I actually think that, and I don't know if this is factual in terms of how they filmed it, I felt like she got even better as it went on, which also represented her character. There is some unsureness at first with the hands as a chess player when they're learning. I mean, I feel like as it went on, you could see the confidence, and something that I always look for whenever I'm watching chess shows in terms of the confidence in which you watch a video with Carlsen and Nakamura, and they move with no hesitation, right? And you can see the difference between players that do that versus some unsureness, right? And I think that everybody in their role did a pretty good job with that for sure. And I just noticed that the white square was always on the right, right? So they never messed up. The chess was beyond, and I would say it's probably the best chess I've seen in anything on film since the Searching for Bobby Fischer movie. And on that note, I have to ask: was Beth Harmon supposed to be Bobby Fischer? Is that who the character's based on? What did you guys take from that? Oren first.
I don't know if it was necessarily meant to represent somebody who is an actual, person, other than maybe the author, because I think I read somewhere that the author of the book actually had a similar sort of experience in youth with drug addiction that was sort of forced upon him or something like that. But I think maybe she's an amalgamation of different people, not just in the history of chess, but just in the history of excelling at something to the point of becoming famous from it, and the pressures that come from that, the inner struggle that comes from that. Sometimes the inability to listen to the input of others, right, who are outside of that, but seeing you go through something.
Right.
I think that's pretty common among these types of people in real life, and so all of that ends up being distilled into this one character.
Yeah. Jen, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that there's definitely some references to Bobby Fischer in the movie, but I agree completely with Aaron that it's like some kind of composite. You see, I think there was some suggestion that there were some Gary Kasparov references in her character.
I thought some Judith Polgar even, honestly.
Judith, Diana Lanny, actually, who apparently crossed in some of the same circles as Walter Tevis. She just wrote on my wall in a post about this that she heard that there were some references to her because she did struggle with some of the same things that Beth did in the movie.
Right.
And so I think, that it was an incredible character, but I don't think it was like based on one person. I did notice in your notes you had a specific thought about Judith Polgar that perhaps the hair color was a reference.
Right.
To that.
Was a direct homage. I didn't know, right? Just because I haven't read the book, right? So I wasn't sure if the hair color was a direct reference to the red hair of Jennifer Shahade. That's the.
Yes!
Okay.
It was me.
It was you.
I did see an interview with her talking about that, Danny, so I can clear it up. The hair was brown in the book, and the red hair in the movie was her, or the series rather, was her idea to make her stand out from all the other characters. I mean, not that being a beautiful woman was not enough because it was all men, but also nobody else in the movie had red hair.
Okay.
So it's like that second layer of like, wow, she totally stands out. But yeah, of course, you can't help when you're watching it to think about Judith Polgar's like flaming red hair and like what it represents.
Speaking of standing out, was the cowboy hat too much? I mean, Aaron, speaking of guys wearing a hat that might be a little too much, Aaron, go ahead. Cowboy hat too much?
I think there need to be more hats in chess.
Okay, there you go. Well, you're repping it. What did you think? I feel like there was a little bit of an eccentric nod to the eccentric, chess-obsessed guy, right? And as something, maybe the cowboy hat for the writing kind of brought that out. But what was your thought on the outfit that Benny Watts sported throughout the entire series?
I liked it. I think the movie was fantastic and moody. And I like that Benny represented like a little bit of injection of humor. Like he was like the one character that was just kind of like pop, like here's a little humor. And I actually wish the movie had a tiny bit more of that.
Right.
So whenever he came on screen, I was like, yeah, because then we see the contrast of her moody, emotive acting and like just, almost like kind of similar to the drugs she's taking. Right. Kind of slows you down. And then this guy who's like not as talented as her, but a little bit more manic, right?
Right. Larger than life character. I definitely related to the sleeping on someone's floor in New York and having to like grab some. I mean, I think a lot of chess players have been there. Well, all right. I got a lot more questions we can get to. And one of the things I wondered is we're all talking about this as chess players, me and you, Jen, especially, and Aaron. You're a chess professional in a lot of ways now, right? But did you watch with your wife any non-chess players with you, and what were their thoughts on it? Did you have that experience?
She actually made fun of me when I queued it up for the first episode and was like, "You just want to watch it because it's about chess." But now she's so hooked on it because it's just an excellent show, regardless of the chess. And so, I mean. What was the original question?
Well, what did she think about it? So you answered it. She's hooked on it. She liked it, even as a non-chess player. And your husband Daniel is not a chess player either, right, Jen?
No, and he actually works in film, so he had a lot of interesting thoughts on it. He loved it. He also binged it, but he loves chess, so it's not. And we did like some chess projects together, so it's not that surprising that he really liked it. But he talked about it also about. This it's almost like the show is a male fantasy in a way because it's it's about this female heroine and it works both ways. It works as like a woman fantasy and as a male fantasy, just like in a different way, just like the wanting to be with her and the wanting to be her in those different angles. And I think that the one thing is I'm getting tons of messages. Because I'm like a redheaded chess player who wrote Chess Bitch.
Right.
So clearly there's like a lot of, even though I wasn't around when he wrote Queen's Gambit, there was no me in that. I still like am getting questions from people. What did you think of it? Do you like it? Were you involved at all?
Right.
And so, and these are people that don't play chess at all. Friends from high school, college, poker, all over the place. And invariably people are like, I love it.
Well, we know that there were a couple chess players involved. You mentioned Garry Kasparov and, of course, Bruce Pandolfini. And Pandolfini himself makes a cameo in episode 6. Were there any other chess cameos that I missed asking for a friend? Did anyone else see any other chess cameos, or was it just Pandolfini in the show?
I think it was just him because it was shot in Berlin. It was shot in Berlin, so it would have to be like a German chess player. Maybe we wouldn't recognize them.
Got it. Okay. Sorry. I just was curious if anyone else saw him. We've got so one of the questions we got to ask first is your favorite scene so far.
Well, I really enjoyed both when she learned how to play chess from the custodian. I thought he was like such a magical character because it takes this kind of understanding of chess as something that's totally not hierarchical. So they're playing chess in the basement with somebody in a job that's usually not as respected as it should be. Although
Right.
now with like COVID-19, we understand very much that essential workers and keeping places like clean is like basically one of the
Right.
most important things that you can do
Fundamental.
in society.
Right.
So yeah, I think we're getting that a bit more, but in the movie, it's like, it's amazing how quickly chess teaches you that, because you never once think of the custodian as somebody who's like lesser
Right.
than, never, even
Right.
though he's in the basement. And because of like the lighting, they also make the basement look like this magical place,
Right.
not like this dark and damp place.
Right.
So from the very beginning, the movie just shows you like, this is the most beautiful place in
Right.
the world, right?
It's her favorite place for sure. You get that sense from the character, and I think that, you know, having played chess my whole life, that's one of the best parts about it, right? It transcends age, gender, race, religion, right? Like you said, I don't always say that, but it also transcends hierarchical sort of stereotypes in culture. And if anything, the custodian is sort of a godlike, almost father figure who's one of the first nourishers she has, right? In some ways, he sort of helps sort of take care of her. But anyway, yeah, it's a great point. I would ask, on that note, we've touched on some of the non-chess controversial topics. Aaron just said one of his favorite scenes directly relates to maybe something forbidden. It makes me wonder, what age do you think is appropriate for us to show this to young chess players if we're looking for something to inspire them, a new chess prodigy story? What age would you say is appropriate for someone to see it, Aaron?
Well, being the parent of 0 children, I I don't know if my opinion will actually be accurate, but I mean, there's definitely some things that that would probably hinder the kind of like positive messaging that you might want to try to impart on your children by having them watch the show with you. So maybe they need to be, I don't know, like getting close to high school age. But yeah, I think it could be a good story as long as you know can get past those things and just and show it to a child that you think is at the right age to understand the real messages, right?
Right.
The overall, you know, message behind this story rather than just focusing on the individual moments, because I think that's what really shines about this, right? Is not just like the individual moments, but like just saying like this can be what it's like to have to like grow up and take care of yourself and like try new things and maybe just like not worry too much if you stand out because you're different or you're interesting or whatever, right? That's not always a negative thing. I think there's some good messages there.
Yeah. Good positive.
Oh, there's lots of great messages, but it's a really wonderful question, Danny. And it's something that I grapple with as like the program director of US Chess Women, because I see that, to me, the question is not, you know, what age is appropriate for them to watch it, but they're going to watch it. You know, so many teenagers and preteens are going to find a way to watch this. And then how do we deal with the fact that it has like such an empowering message on one hand, but then also, let's just be honest, let's not fake it, or an incredibly unrealistic, wrong message about what tranquilizers or pills can do for your chess skill.
Right.
Like, there is no way that downers are going to help you.
Pro tip, everybody. That's not going to help you with chess. Go ahead.
that is not going to make you a chess genius. It's not going to unlock your genius. That is completely crazy. And of course, the show needs to introduce conflict and drama. So it's understandable why they made that choice to go in that direction. But alcohol and downers seem like it would really be like the worst thing for your chess.
Right.
And particularly now when we have like opioid epidemics with, you know, fentanyl, like people just dropping dead because they take, you know, a pill. It's like, I'm not going to be the one to give you the revelation that drugs are bad.
Right.
But it's particularly with pills right now. And hopefully this will start to change in like the next few years. You know, I am really praying because, you know, I've lost people because of pills.
Right.
I'm sure many people watching this have. It's unfortunate to me, but I think that the reality is kids are super smart. So you got to be honest with them and explain to them that like this is a beautiful series, but that part is fictional.
Right.
That kind of drug is not going to unlock your genius.
Right. Well, and maybe definitely make it to the end, right, where you learn that not every drug story has to be a tragedy of succumbing, but maybe one of triumph and overcoming, right? And again, spoiler alert, if you were looking for a horrible ending, I think the ending is actually amazing. On that note, I think before we end this, we have to ask, so where does this rank, right? It's a great series. It's an adaptation, but also I always think of the best chess films of all time. Before I tell you where I would rank it and maybe what kind of stars I would give it, I'll ask the two of you. Where would you rank it among your favorite chess film experiences of all time?
I would put it personally at number one.
Oh, really?
Because
okay.
For me, even though it does strive and I think achieve a level of accuracy in terms of like the actual chess that's shown in it, but it does that and tells an excellent story outside of it. Whereas all of the other chess, themed movies and television shows that I've watched, it's usually either you get one or the other. You get a lot of accurate chess being shown, but not a lot of engaging storytelling, or just high quality production value, which is something I focus on. Or you get it the other way around, right? It's very entertaining and very inaccurate.
Very
Whereas
horrible
this
chess.
one was just such a good mix of both.
Yeah.
So I feel like I put it at the top.
Okay. Jen, what about you?
Yeah, I have to say Aaron stole my ranking in that I think I'd put it at number one too, because of I think it's an unreal achievement. It's hard to imagine a depiction of chess being this beautifully executed, and I think a lot of credit must go to the acting and the director for that. They really seem to just like allow it to rise above anything that I could have hoped for. That said, it was 7 hours long, so I think it's a bit of a apples and orange comparison.
Right.
I loved Queen of Catway. I thought that movie was brilliant as well. I love Brooklyn Castle. So I thought that for what its genre was, it was close to 10 out of 10. And some of those other movies I think were close to 10 out of 10 too, but they were shorter. So it's, I'd rather have 7 hours of 10 out of 10 than like 2 hours of 10 out of 10.
As you talk about it, I guess I'm maybe surprisingly agreeing. I think Searching for Bobby Fischer, to me, at least previously to this one, took the cake of they got the chess right? And I think that one of the things, regardless of the true story of Josh Waitzkin and his relationship with Bruce Pandolfini, whether that was close to real or not, didn't matter. The movie itself with Lawrence Fishburne, the scenes in Washington Square Park, the scenes of the struggle of a young chess player, I thought that was previous to this maybe the closest. This is a little more adult than that, but I would agree that because it's an apples to oranges comparison, 7 hours of this is. I kept waiting for them to slip up, and they never quite did. So I think your ranking of 10 out of 10 agrees with most of the people right now ranking it on Rotten Tomatoes. And with that, we'll encourage everybody that they should definitely check it out and make sure you see the Queen's Gambit right now on Netflix. And if you don't mind, give us your opinions and comments down below. Let us know whether you agree with some of our answers or think we're nuts. We love it either way. And while you're here, give us a like and a share, and let us know what your favorite scene from the Queen's Gambit was. So thank you so much for checking out our breakdown of the Queen's Gambit on Netflix, and see you around on Chess.com.
Bye, guys.